My dear friends, today's my guest is Mr. Arif Anis, the gentleman who is known as being one of the probably the most prestigious titles to be among 100 the most influential people in Europe. Mr. Arif Anis also is the fantastic writer. He's written very, very good books. One of them is called I Am Possible, Follow Your Dreams, and he co-authored a book made in Crisis. Arif has got many, many other dimensions. He was sharing stages with world-known leaders, presidents and prime ministers such as Donald Trump and Prime Minister Boris Johnson and Theresa May and Bill Clinton and many, many, many others. He is also a known person for starting a co-founding initiative called 1 Million Meals to help NHS and other vulnerable people during the crisis due to coronavirus. Several days ago, at the end of October 2020, he's received a fantastic award called Brain of the Year 2020 by the Brain Trust UK. It's another recognition of his humanitarian, philanthropical activity. So welcome, Arif Anis, to my program. Hello, Arif.
Hi, Gennady. Good afternoon from London.
Yes, hello from Ukraine. I am actually in a small town at the border of Slovakia and Hungary. And I'm so happy to be on quarantine here. It's a small town, you know, there is less temptations to go out, a lot of nature. So it was.
You can't ask for a better. You can't ask for a better place, particularly in these days.
And I started, you know, planting my own tomatoes and the gardening and, you know, like most of the people coming back to our roots, you know, to what our parents were doing. And I'm enjoying it.
Correct.
But let me introduce
somehow
somehow
the pandemic has actually pushed us to reconsider our roots and in a way rethink where we all came from. So I came from a small town where I was a shepherd some 3-4 decades back, and then gradually all along the way during these times I have been actually thinking about those times when I was out in the mountains with my flock and with the nature, and I'm so much envious to what you are experiencing. Yeah, this is the best remedy these days.
But can you imagine how you would look at it now if you'd be doing the same thing as when you were a kid? I think you would appreciate it much more, the beauty of nature, the simple life, good food, fresh air, no really tweeters, schmitters, all these disturbances.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So somehow this is a good moment to reflect and meditate.
Yes, I fully agree, because I think I hope, and I'm sure that most of the people feel the same way, that this was a call, you know, by nature, by divine, by God, that we should really slow down, stop and think what's really important. And then for me, important really relationship, family, health. I was mentioning Louis Vuitton bag. It's important, but not that important.
Oh, yes, true. This is what I have been discussing in my upcoming book, the Big Reset, because somehow all these systems, they went through loads of transformation in the last 3-4 months. And somehow important and the crucial and the most important, they have been newly defined.
Right. Well, I would love to talk about your book, coming book, and I think it's going to be next bestseller. But if you don't mind, I'll briefly introduce you to my viewers. First of all, you're a good friend of mine, you know, from, you know, for some years already. You've been known each other.
5-6 years. It's plain knowing you, in fact. Yeah, your incredible work.
Yes, yeah, well, thank you. And you are known as a very good writer, very influential writer, because you haven't written too many books. You cannot say that you've done 40 or 30, but what you've done is very, very impressive. And I think it influenced people tremendously. And I would like to mention one book which I like very much is Follow Your Dream, and another one, Impossible. And can you please tell us
Correct.
about the title? Because you mentioned that Muhammad Ali was doing something like that, was saying something like that.
Oh, yes. This book actually, it became really intriguing because this book's title, it is, when you spell impossible, it is IMPOSSIBLE. So I actually twisted this particular word, and while the spelling remained the same, I played with it and put an apostrophe on it. That actually, this word, which is impossible, it can look to someone as I am possible, depending upon the mindset you have, depending upon the state of mind you have. And Muhammad Ali was a great inspiration behind this title. And I would actually quote his famous quotation, because he said that impossible is just a big word thrown around by small men who find it easier to live in the world they have been given than to explore the power they have to change it. So impossible is not a fact. It is an opinion. Impossible is not a declaration. It is a dare. And impossible is potential. Impossible is temporary. And impossible is nothing. And I think you must have come across this Adidas logo. Impossible is nothing, because that is what they picked it from. And that inspired me to name this book as I Am Possible.
My name is Stephanie Hill. I am the reigning Miss England 2017-2018. I have here Arif Anis's I'm Possible, and the time is now. Hi, I'm Katy Perry, and I'm possible.
You see, even just reflecting on the title, it already gives hell of a lot of motivation, without even opening the book. It's the whole story behind the title, which is absolutely great. I also would like to mention that you are expert in human capital. So you were kind of using your knowledge, your experience, your own life to inspire people, to uplift people, to show them that there is a better way to their own self. You were teaching people how to self-govern themselves and not to rely on somebody's silly opinion, whether it's possible or impossible, but to have their own life. I'd like to mention your fantastic ability to connect. And another thing which really is impressive, that you know so many world leaders, so many governments, and you were rubbing shoulders with presidents and Bill Clinton and Donald Trump and prime ministers and, Richard, Theresa May and a lot of, you name the name and you say, oh yes, I've been with her. And that was, you were using that connections to enhance yourself and then transfer, I believe, their wisdom to people and through your books and through your talks, because you've been speaking in 42 countries worldwide and you're known as international speaker, and you were sharing stage with big stars in the speaking industry. It's like Robert Kiyosaki and Anthony Robbins and many, many others. So, which part of you do you think you like the most? Speaking, writing, socializing with the big guys? What is your favorite?
Thanks. That's a complex question. I will try to address this. When it comes to the extraordinary people, as I shared, I came from a small village in Pakistan, where I was raised in a family of shepherds, and over there I used to dream, and I didn't know actually what is beyond those mountains. That's a small valley, and with tall mountains, and didn't know much about the life of the world beyond those mountains. And somehow when I stepped outside and I started exploring it, I was really wonderstruck by the extraordinariness in human beings. I came across great people and I became a student of leadership. So people who have done amazing things, whether they are in politics, they are in business, whether they are doing some charitable work. So I became a sponge who would actually seek their particular, I would say, formula to greatness, and then who would soak that up and who would share this the people around myself. So the people that you mentioned, yes, I was lucky enough to actually rub shoulders with 14, 15 heads of states. I have been moving in those circles. I still move in that circle. So what I do with them, I follow them as a student. I yearn to know what made that person who he or she is at this moment, and what has gone beyond that. So I'm actually much more focused on what is beyond the facade, beyond the front. So as looking at those people, knowing them in their private moments, and actually making a difference between the facade and the reality. Because as you have known many great people and you have worked with, we understand that there's a facade and then there is reality. So what I love at my heart, I think this is my position as a writer. When I write, I feel that I'm getting fulfilled. It expresses my essence, and I try to write what I experience from those extraordinary people or the extraordinary circumstances. So at my heart, I would consider myself a writer. As a networker, this comes more as a business and more as an opportunity, but I love to write whatever I have experienced.
Right. And what about speaking at the stage?
Yes, this actually, as you might have, and several people who would be watching this program, as you invited some of the best people on the planet to actually speak over here. Speaking as a power, I discovered when I was in my college days, and I found out that some of the most important things and most transformative tools that have actually changed the entire course of human history, speaking is one of them. From Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address to Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream, to actually, when we look at and even when we go back to Romans and the Greek, we find out that somehow the entire history where emperors have been forgotten, where empires have been forgotten, even still the speech of probably one soldier or one army chief or one emperor or one common man, or it can be actually Socrates, that's still alive. So I was awestruck by the power of speech that it has on the human mind. So much so that actually it can live for thousands of years. So that's why I became a student, and I tried to learn it, and I tried learning it from the best of the world as well. So when I'm on the stage, and yes, we've shared the stages. I've been on the stage with sometimes some of the most influential people in the world, in front of, say, I think my biggest was 25,000 at London's O2. So all these moments are really inspiring moments and transformative moments, because when you speak and you, in the similar moment, you can see the impact on the crowd, and you see that you are in synchronicity and a great frequency. Those are such amazing moments. So yes, I love to speak, and though it is my actually business, but I would still speak as a hobby as well, because this expresses my being, what I believe in, and that helps me inspire people.
It's interesting because I, as a speaker myself, I can sign under every single word you say, because it's not self-glorification, but it's seeing that, first of all, it's desire to share, that I've learned something, I've read a book, and I want to share, because that's what, I cannot keep it you know, within myself. It's like, it's a waste. And then when you share it and you see that people come to it and saying, oh, you changed my life, or you showed me the way, or you gave me this instrument, etc. This is an absolutely fantastic feeling, and I can understand that. And probably all these three made you the most influential. I've read in some of publications that you were named as one of the most influential person in Europe. And that is something that is really, I think, among 100 other people, but it's like, wow.
Yeah, that's such a great honor. I think it was 2 years back in 2018. So the Power100 listed me among the 100 most influential people in Europe. And probably they picked up my speaking aspects, my writing aspects. And then we have done some campaigns to influence. Influence, actually, this one word is a magical word. Whatever good you want to do in this world, it will not happen until you influence.
Right.
And I think this is what you must have found out as well. And this is what I found out after meeting all those great people, working with them, that somehow these great people have the power to influence the narrative, influence the opinions, influence the mindsets, and suddenly the change happens. So it was a great moment when they mentioned that I was listed among those people. And I'm still a student of influence. I'm still learning and hoping to get better on it.
Right. Yeah. Well, yes, because it's influence, like everything else in life, has got two ends. I mean, you can influence, you can have bad influence, and you can have, you know, great influence, divine influence on people, and it's really. And so, can you please tell us more about your current, what you're occupied now? I know that you are finishing or finished, because I saw the title of your last book. And this is very much connected to the current situation. Some people say chaos, some people say it's doom and gloom, some people say it's new beginning. Can you tell us more about that?
Yes, the last 4 months, they have been very different, I think, for the most of us. We all were busy doing what we have been doing when the clock struck 2020. And most of us were actually as enthusiastic and ambitious as we ever have been. And it's a new year. However, from January, things unfolded. In February, we were still looking at it from a different lens. And in March, we were all caught napping. It actually struck us all, the whole world, wherever we have been. And this was a huge meditative moment, meditative in a manner that it made me reflect, it made me question, it made me investigate, it made me dive deep into myself to figure out, once again, the basic questions: what life is, what is achievement, what is success, what is influence, and what is a crisis and what is an opportunity. So from all these standpoints, the last 4 months have been hugely transformative. These 4 months impacted me differently. One, I figured out in the initial days that the biggest honor is to serve. And in this moment, if I could do anything, I should go all out and do it. While the rest of the world is in the lockdown and people are isolating, and we don't know what we are combating, we don't know what we are fighting, because it is hugely confused question right now. Coronavirus and why and how it started and how it is impacting us. So in March 2020, I went down myself for a good 18 days. Not many people know that. And I was experiencing the highest fever I ever experienced in my life. I was speechless, utterly. I couldn't speak for a good 14 days. And I didn't know what was going on. And these were the lowest days of my life. And I didn't know actually whether it was coronavirus, because that was the time we were struggling to define the tests were still not out in the UK. So I had to call the ambulance twice. And I received the crew who treated me, and they were sure of it that actually I had contracted a coronavirus and I was positive. But then those times the tests were not there. So they just advised me to isolate myself. And then at the same time, they treated me the way I could have been treated. So I was going through those long 18 days, and I kept on asking myself, what if I survive this, what would I like to do? And the answer was that in this moment, when we all are down, when I come out alive, I would prefer to serve. So by the end of March, I was pretty good. I regained my energies. And the first thing I did, because when I was meeting the medical crew, I was stunned to find that both times they were serving 12 hours, 14 hours long duties without a break. And they even didn't have food to eat, which was shocking. Because as you are aware, the NHS is one of the biggest agencies in the world. It has 125 billion pounds worth of budget. So we're not talking about small agency. So what I found out that as there was a lockdown and the restaurants and the pubs, everything was closed, hospital canteens were actually closed because their employees were sent on a furlough. And doctors and nurses, they were working on long duties, long duration, without a break and without food. So they were only relying on the vending machines. And I asked myself, while these people are putting their lives on line for us, what can I do? And the answer was, all right, probably you can serve them, probably you can give them a pat on the back, or you can keep their energies intact. So the first day when I was out, when I was off the bed, I went to meet a friend. He had some huge experience in the food industry. And I said, this is what I went through. And this is the moment, this is a moment of trial. The question is, what can we do? Incidentally, he was himself actually thinking about the same thing. And he said, yes, he actually ran a big chain of restaurants, and those restaurants were closed. And he said, well, we can serve these NHS doctors, paramedics, key workers with some hot food until the lockdown is over. And then we met our third friend who was a Forbes 30 under 30, very innovative. And we sat down together, and on the 1st of April, 1 million meals was born. Now, you might ask, why 1 million meals? Once again, the same impossible or I am possible bent of mind. I thought, okay, if we have to serve these people, let's put a big figure, a daring figure that can stimulate people's passion. So I came up with this name, 1 million meals, and 1 million meals started operating from the 1st of April. That's April Fool's Day, in fact. So that's what actually it has been a mainstay of my life in the last 3-4 months. The best thing I would tell you that we started with a crazy idea. We wanted to serve 1 million meals to the people, to the staff, to the doctors, nurses, paramedics, and vulnerable people, the homeless who didn't have access to food. So in the last now, as we sit in the end of June, so approximately 3 months' time, we have managed to serve around 100,000 meals and nutritious drinks to more than 203 locations in the UK, England, Wales, Scotland. And this has been something I consider that was such an honor to serve those people experiencing the crisis, whether they were working in the NHS or whether they were homeless. This is what I've been engaged in. One side. On the second side, I was also undergoing a huge experience in regards to the mind shift. Because this crisis, while it is a crisis at the same time, it is an opportunity, it also showed that something is fundamentally wrong the way we have been running this world in the last 100 years. In the 20th century, the world actually, we experienced the horrific atrocities of the World War I and World War II. And then in the 60s and the 70s, I was born later, but then the human being somehow concluded that it has been enough, and now this world should be a better place. We should not be going through this whole cataclysmic experience of the world wars. And that's where we started seeing some institutions to rebuild the world. But then when look back, and this is now the 2020, it seems in the last 50 years, somehow we got off the track. Our ecology, our habits, our equilibrium in terms of justice, in terms of power, in terms of distribution of wealth, distribution of human excellence, or quality of life, that has been badly impacted. So I went through a long meditative experience, started writing, and that's what is now going to be published in the book, which is coming, which will be released worldwide in 2020. It is actually, it's named as
Made in Crises.
Because I think this entire experience has been, it can be a big reset, to restart, to relook at everything, recalibrate at everything, what we have been doing, and then do it differently, do it better than we have been doing in the last 50 years.
That's great, and that's what I really hope for, that we will remember. I mean, it's still not over, and it's still, as you said, nobody knows really what the hell it is, because they don't have a cue. You know, people have got different symptoms, and I have a feeling that you had it already because of this. You should maybe try antibodies in your, to test whether you have.
Yes. I'm actually, I've gone through the antibodies test recently, and expecting a result in a couple of days.
Right. Well, if you have it, then good for you. So you can be more brave probably than other people because you have, this, how do you call it, immune system for that. But my kind of concern is that really we are scared. And then when the world will become back, so we go back to normal. And right. I never forget, there is a joke, which is like, I don't know where there is English equivalent, but I'm sure it is. And in English and Pakistani, and when the man is visiting married woman, and then the husband comes and he jumps out of the window, and when he's flying from, I don't know, 12th floor, he is thinking, gosh, I'm going to be faithful, I'm not going to do these dirty things I was doing. And then he landed safely on something, and then he kind of stands up and he says, what sort of rubbish comes into one's mind? So I mean, if the people would be reacting like that, and if the world, because those in power, I mean, we're still driven by profit, by consumerism, because it's like, I was talking to Marshall Goldsmith, and he said, well, Gennady, if we're saying that we don't need, designer clothes, we don't need this, we want to live a simple life, but all the things which we don't want and don't need, they're produced somewhere. They give income to those people in Bangladesh and India and Pakistan. And so these people find themselves without work, without income. So everything is so connected, and really how to get out. And if it's really possible, really to change, first of all, I think we have to change the value system. We have to change in ourselves first, and then maybe really try to, I don't know, you tell me, I don't know how to whether fine tune or kind of rebuild, reset, as you said, the system.
Gennady, your joke is actually so much connected to what the most of us have been experiencing. Yes, when we somehow see, when we look at the obvious outcome of our wrongdoings, it somehow brings that moment of truth to us when we question what we have been doing, and the moment we land safely on our feet, we say, all right, fine, let's get back to normal. Now, what really threatens me is this word normal, back to routine. Because the back to normal, the back to routine is what created all of this. That created all this misery, that created all this inequality, that created all this injustice. And never in the human history while I'm a big fan of Steve Jobs and Bill Gates and all those people who are doing amazing stuff, Elon Musk was actually, he attended one of my events in 2012 with President Clinton. He was a guest over there. While we appreciate all the amazing work and the ambition of all these people, but at the same time, never in the human history, 1% owned the remaining 99% of this world. So it also, it kicks up a big question that how this would work out, because we clearly see that it's not working out. Coronavirus exposed leadership failure all over the world. And it exposed actually the wrong priorities. While the world has been spending, they say world, it means the people, the big powers, the G8 and the G20, they have been spending trillions of dollars on nukes and Star Wars and missiles and how life can be actually destroyed. We found out that even in the first world countries in the West, the countries were struggling with ventilators, with not having enough medical support. In the UK, it took us actually 2 months to arrange and organize the PPE, the protection equipment for our warriors on the front line. While we are the 5th largest economy of the world, and with the nukes and everything, but this is a question mark. So one, when we say that we go back to normal, I would say, oh, God forsake, like, for God's sake, we don't go back to that normal that created all of this. So yes, we would love to go back to that normal when we can hug and we can dance and we can celebrate and we can be together. Yeah, this is the normal we all would love to go back to. However, the normal in terms of opportunities, in terms of the leadership, in terms of making this world a better place, that's where we all have been given a chance. And I think we shouldn't be missing it out. If we miss this chance out now, maybe we get the next one in the next 50 years, the next 80 years, the next 100 years, and we don't know how bad it can be. This has been worse, as I think this was the biggest catastrophe of my lifetime. I'm in my 40s. And what I experienced, the whole world going upside down. I don't expect my next generations to experience this in the next 50 to 100 years. But for that matter, it's important that we actually recalibrate, question what we have been doing, and look at the real purpose of us and our connection with nature, and how we can reset. And when I say reset, and the way the book questions actually, that we need a fundamental shift in our bent of mind, in our state of mind, the way we look at things. The way we have been using and abusing planet for the last 50 years, it has been it has been a one-sided affair. And we're already seeing, we still don't know what caused the virus and how that exponentially unfolded and it froze the entire life. But whatever, we will figure it out in the next couple of months, couple of years. And I'm sure that it has to be with some of our sickening habits, the way we have been living, the way we have been treating this planet, and that caused all this pandemic.
Right. And another thing which I would like to mention is that for me, it was a shock and disappointment in the way European Union and the world actually cooperated. Countries just shut themselves down. And when Italy was dying like mad, not much help was given. And the same, it's like countries felt that, well, we protect our own. So it's like back into the past. Well, that's my feeling. I think I might be wrong, but I've had the feeling that this again showed that our integration and cooperation very often is based on something when things are nice, when things go tough, then things collapsing.
You're right. Actually, we all are ordinary people until we are thrown in a crisis. I'm a student of leadership, and what I have figured out to my own assessment, that a crisis is the best opportunity to find out the true leaders. a crisis is the best opportunity. It's a touchstone that creates extraordinary people, that actually differentiates them from the ordinary people. And somehow throughout this, though we have some humbling, humane, and great stories of trust in humanity, overall, when we look at it, it seems that there has been a catastrophic leadership failure that resulted in the loss of life, in the huge loss of economy. And those leaders, particularly when you look at, say, the Donald Trumps of America, or Boris Johnson of the United Kingdom, so they somehow let us down in a manner that we saw a new breed of female leaders. We saw Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand, and then Germany's Chancellor Merkel, and some other amazing leaders. And somehow the best responses that survived this virus and that fought it off, they came from six female presidents and prime ministers and chancellors. And they all acted with compassion. What I truly liked about these females and Jacinda and other people, that usually the leadership field, which is left to the bullies and the powerful almighty people, they came up with this idea that compassion is one of the biggest muscle that you can have. And they operated through that. Up till now, they have been very successful. I think this is also another defining moment of what leadership is, what it can be, and what it might look like in the coming few decades.
Right. Well, that's again another good message. Excellent, because I'm very much in support of women's leadership and the role of women in everything, in leading, in artificial intelligence, in education, because they female side bring the softer approach, more emotional approach, more sensitive approach than male, sometimes, alpha males who just, our own ego sometimes doesn't allow us to see the things properly. My last question, what you would suggest, what you would advise to ordinary people who are small business owners, not mighty, powerful people, but people who really lost or think that they lost their businesses. So what your advice would be?
This is a big question and a very much relevant question. I would actually share one story. I would take some more time to respond to this question, because I think this is really imperative. When crisis happens, and crisis is actually that particular experience that we are not ready. We haven't really prepared ourselves. This is unthinkable, out of the blue, out of the routine experience. When crisis happens, it can impact us in two ways. It can either make us, or it can either break us. I usually tell a story, and as you know that we all are storytellers as we are speakers. I usually tell a story that someone is having an experiment, and for that matter, one person boils water to a good 100-degree plus. The water is really, really, really hot. And then there are three things to put to this boiling hot water. One is a carrot, a small piece of carrot. One is an egg. And one is a sachet of tea, a tea bag. As we all understand that heat impacts things differently. So a piece of carrot is usually hard. It's not very, very hard, but usually it's hard. And it is solid. When you put this in hot boiling water, we understand what the hot water does to it. It actually makes it in a way, it melts it. It just becomes smooth, it becomes soft. An egg is very fragile element. We are very careful because we understand it can break anytime. It's very soft. When you put this in the hot water impacts it differently. and we all understand that it becomes hard. So a boiled egg is much harder compared to an ordinary egg. Now, when we look at a tea bag does something amazing. A tea bag, when you put that in the hot boiling water, it actually transforms the entire composition of that water. It not only spreads its presence, but also transforms the entire composition. So this is how different people actually, they act or react towards a crisis. Sometimes those who are very hard, very solid, when they go through the crisis, they just melt down. They have their meltdown and they become soft and they become queasy. They get washed out. Sometimes, like an egg, you go through the crisis and you become. And sometimes, if you are a tea bag, you go through the crisis. You actually manage the crisis in such a wonderful manner that you transform the entire hot boiling water. So this is true for human beings as well. Some people actually they get washed out. Some people, they become hard. They lose their humanity. And sometimes there are people actually who transform this entire crisis into an opportunity. So this particular crisis is the same thing. I have been actually speaking at various universities in the last 3-4 months in virtual congresses and conferences. This very interesting thing that I came across, that in the last 600 or 700 years, the human growth, development, and evolution, pandemics and crisis have been playing a huge role in evolving the human mind. From the 12th century's, crisis and pandemics to the Great Plague to all these 6-7 major crises that the humanity actually experimented and experienced, they also played a crucial role in igniting the human mind to figure out solutions and innovation and science and thinking out of the box. So they played a big role in that. So on one hand, yes, we lost many lives and millions of people, they got killed, but it also added quality of thought to the human mind. So I think that is what is going to happen in this crisis as well. While we understand that it impacted us negatively, we are also sure that it would bring out many solutions. And those solutions are already obvious. We understand now that the world of marketing, for example, that has changed. It would never be the same as it was in pre-corona days. Manufacturing, sales, particularly when you look at the supply chain economy, all of that got disrupted. But we also, at the same time, in the last 4 months, there are 7 new billionaires who emerged billionaires only in these coronavirus pandemic times. So there's a big shift, and I think the common people, those who are going to definitely experience the aftermath of this crisis, we are going to relook at education, what kind of education we need, how education can serve us. We're going to have a second look at the priorities. We understand that most of the businesses in the UK and in the West, actually, they are experiencing a huge crisis. So somehow the Zoom and all this technology that we are actually utilizing right now, it has tumbled the prices of the commercial properties, offices, people working from home. It was a bit of a misnomer earlier. Most of the people never understood it, and that's a new normal now. Suddenly, most of the females who couldn't work actually because they had familial responsibilities, they are the new focus, because they can stay at home and they can contribute. That's something new that's happening. Similarly, the power of a visual presence that has grown manifold. So yes, while we understand, like speakers like us and the event organizers like us, we might have less physical events, but then we might have hundreds of virtual events happening all over the world. So this is going to impact us all in many, many ways. And it is imperative that we look at what particular business we have, what particular job title we have, and we need to assess. One way I look at it, I think the life would never be same. It would never be what we experienced in January 2020. We would love it to be that normal again, but it might take years. And it might probably in that particular sphere, it could never be that same. So we need to look at the impact, and we need to be ready ahead of time. We need to be ahead of the curve while preparing ourselves for our business, for our particular job routine, for our particular clientele. Things have changed. And anyone actually who would not change would miss the bus, would miss the boat. So we need to really gather ourselves up and get ourselves going.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful message, which I cannot agree more. Thank you very much, Arif. Thank you for your time. I know that you're a very busy man in time of quarantine. I think you work even harder than before. And thank you very much for your time, for your interview. Looking forward to get the copy. I'll buy the copy of your book. And I would love to see it in Russian as well. So if you want, I can talk to some publishing houses and maybe arrange that.
That would be such an honor. It would be a great honor because I love Russian. I'm a huge fan of Russian literature, from Tolstoy to Chekhov and all the Pushkin. It will be a pleasure actually getting translated, and we'll definitely be in touch on that.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Arif. Take care. And
thanks, Gennady. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.